The research ship called Gentle Dawn was dying. It floated in the cold darkness of space, far from any friendly world with its engines completely dead. Commander stood on the bridge and watched the warning lights flash red across every screen. The ship had no power. It could not move. It could not run. And the pirates had found them. Was a being with pale blue skin that was almost see-through and four thin arms that shook with fear. There were scientists and explorers. They were not fighters. Their bodies were small and weak. Their ships were built for research, not for battle. And now 12 pirate ships from the syndicate circled around them like hungry animals. They were known across the galaxy as thieves and killers. They attacked ships that could not fight back. They took everything of value and left nothing behind. Their ships were ugly and covered with weapons. Their leader, a reptile named, had destroyed hundreds of vessels in his long career. Looked at the crew, 37 scientists, researchers, teachers. None of them had ever held a weapon. None of them knew how to fight. They looked back at their commander with huge, frightened eyes. "What do we do?" asked one of the younger crew members. Did not have an answer. The communication systems were still working, but who would come? They were in the outer rim of the Andromeda Passage, far from space, far from anyone who might help. Unless move to the communication panel. There was one option left, a desperate option, that could send a distress signal on all frequencies. It would reach every system within range. Maybe someone would hear it, maybe someone would come. But knew which systems were nearby, and one of them made every child afraid to sleep at night. Sol System, Earth, home of the humans, home of the... The galaxy had many names for humans. Monsters, predators, the species that should not exist. They came from a world that was constantly trying to kill them. Their planet had earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, and storms. It had diseases that could destroy entire populations. It had predators with sharp teeth and poison and claws, and somehow, against all logic, humans had survived. They had conquered their terrible world, and then they had built ships and come to the stars. Every species in the galaxy feared them. They had strict rules about human contact. Do not approach, do not communicate, do not attract their attention. Humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too strong. But the pirates were moving closer. Their weapons were charging. In a few minutes they would start cutting through the hull. Closed all four eyes and made a choice. The distress beacon activated. It sent a signal screaming across space in every direction. "Help us. We are dying. Please help us." The signal reached 12 different star systems. It passed through territory. It touched the edges of 3 different empires. And it reached Sol's system, where it was picked up by an orbital station called Horizon Prime. Lieutenant Park was working the night shift when the signal came in. She was 26 years old, with short black hair and tired eyes. Monitoring deep space signals was boring work. Most nights, nothing happened. She would drink coffee, read reports, and wait for her shift to end. But tonight, her screens lit up with an emergency broadcast. Sat up straight. She ran the signal through the translation software. Language, a research vessel. Engine failure, pirates attacking. 37 crew members, no weapons, no hope. She checked the coordinates. The ship was far away, but not too far. A fast vessel could reach it in a few hours. Picked up her communicator and called the one person who could make this decision. Captain Lee was sleeping when the call came. He was the commander of the heavy cruiser Black Mountain, one of Earth's most powerful warships. He was 43 years old, with gray hair at his temples and scars on his hands from 20 years of military service. He had fought in 3 wars. He had seen things that would break most people, but he was still here, still fighting, still protecting. He answered the call on the second ring. Captain said, "We have a distress signal. Research vessel under attack by pirates. 37 civilians, no way to defend themselves." Lee was already getting out of bed. How far? 4 hours at maximum speed. "They have never asked us for anything," Lee said. They're afraid of us. They're more afraid of dying, sir. Lee paused for just a moment, then he made his decision. Wake the crew, all hands to battle stations. We leave in 10 minutes. The Black Mountain came alive. Lights turned on across the massive ship. Crew members ran to their positions. Engineers powered up the engines. Weapons officers checked their systems. Medical teams prepared for casualties. Commander Han met Captain Lee on the bridge. She was his second in command, a woman with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. She had served with Lee for 8 years. She knew him better than anyone. Territory, she said. They've spent centuries avoiding us. Someone called for help, Lee replied. We were close enough to hear. Is that enough reason to start a potential incident? Lee looked at her. His eyes were calm but hard. People are going to die if we don't go. That's enough reason for me. He sat in the captain's chair and gave the order. The Black Mountain launched from Horizon Prime like a bullet from a gun. Its engines burned with a light so bright that nearby sensors went blind. It tore through normal space and then jumped into, moving faster than anything the galaxy had ever seen. On the gentle dawn waited. The ships were almost in boarding range. The crew was crying, praying, holding each other. They had no idea that something far more terrifying than pirates was coming to save them. Had been a pirate for 40 years. He had attacked more ships than he could count. He had killed more people than he could remember. His scales were covered with scars from battles he had won. His teeth were stained with the blood of his enemies. He was the most feared captain in the syndicate, and he had never lost a fight. Today would be easy. A research ship with no weapons and no engines. 37 soft little scientists who would scream and beg for mercy. His crew would take everything valuable. They would sell the ship for parts. They would sell the crew as slaves. Another simple job. His fleet of 12 raider ships surrounded the gentle dawn like wolves around a wounded animal, gave the order to begin boarding operations. His soldiers prepared their weapons and their cutting tools. In a few minutes, they would burn through the hull and take what they wanted. Then something strange happened. One of his officers made a sound that had never heard before. It was a small, frightened noise, like a child seeing a monster in the dark. Captain, the officer whispered, something is coming. Looked at the sensor screen. There was a ship approaching. One ship, just one, he laughed. One ship against 12, this fool was going to die. Identify it, he ordered. The officer's hands were shaking as he worked the controls. Unknown design, unknown origin. It is coming very fast, Captain. Faster than anything I have ever seen. Felt the first small seed of doubt in his stomach, but he pushed it away. He was not afraid of anything. Then the ship arrived. It did not slow down gracefully like normal vessels. It tore out of like something breaking through a wall. The energy release was so powerful that every sensor on every ship went white for 3 seconds. When the screens cleared, saw what had come. The Black Mountain was not beautiful. It was not elegant. It was a weapon given form, a massive wedge of black metal covered with armor plates thicker than some buildings. Weapon systems lined every surface. Guns that could not identify. Missile tubes that seemed to go on forever. The ship was bigger than all 12 of his raiders combined. But the worst part was the feeling. Every ship felt it at the same moment. A pressure in their minds, a weight in their chests. The simple, animal knowledge that they were looking at a predator. Something that could kill them all without effort. Something that did not know fear because it had never needed to. The Black Mountain broadcast a message. The voice that came through was calm, almost bored, like a giant talking to insects. Vessels, you are attacking a ship that sent a distress call. Leave now or don't leave at all. Stared at the screen. His mouth was dry. His claws were digging into his chair. For the first time in 40 years, he felt true fear. But fear made him angry, and anger made him stupid. "All ships," he snarled, "attack formation, destroy that thing." On the bridge of the Black Mountain, Captain Lee watched the ships move into attack positions. He felt nothing. No anger, no excitement, just a calm, cold focus that had kept him alive through 20 years of combat. "They're not running," Commander Han observed. "Their mistake," Lee replied. He turned to his weapons officer. "Minyu, disable them, don't destroy them." Lieutenant Minyu was a young man with steady hands and eyes that never blinked during combat. He had trained for years to do exactly this. His fingers moved across the weapon's console like a musician playing an instrument. "Understood, Captain. Disabling targets." They opened fire first. Hundreds of energy bolts and missiles flew toward the Black Mountain. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The Black Mountain did not even raise its shields. The weapons hit the armor and did nothing. Small flashes of light, tiny scratches on paint that was thicker than the hull of a ship. The human vessel did not slow down. It did not change course. It simply kept coming. Then it fired back. The Black Mountain's weapons were not designed for alien ships. They were designed for human wars. Wars where both sides had weapons that could crack planets. Wars where survival meant hitting harder and faster than anything else in the universe. It was not a battle, it was a lesson. Minyu targeted each ship with surgical precision. He did not aim for reactors or fuel tanks. He aimed for engines and weapons. 1 shot per system, 1 second per ship. In 4 minutes, 11 raiders were floating dead in space. Their crews were alive but helpless. Their ships would never fight again. The 12th ship's flagship tried to run. Minyu put 1 shot through its main engine. The ship spun wildly, smoke pouring from the wound in its hull. It was not going anywhere. Captain Lee opened a channel to the disabled flagship. "This is your only warning. Tell your syndicate what happened here. Tell them what comes when they attack ships that ask for help. If we meet again, I will not be so gentle." He closed the channel without waiting for a response. On the Gentle Dawn, Commander had watched the entire battle. The crew stood frozen at their stations. No one spoke. No one moved. They had just witnessed something impossible. The pirates who had terrified them were now broken and burning, and the thing that had broken them was now turning toward their ship, moving closer, filling their screens with black metal and deadly weapons. Wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at the commander to hide, to escape, to get away from this monster. But there was nowhere to go. The Gentle Dawn still had no engines. The human ship stopped a safe distance away. A new message came through, the same calm voice as before. "Vessel, this is the Earth cruiser Black Mountain. Do you require assistance?" Opened a channel with trembling hands. "This is Commander of the Gentle Dawn. Yes, we require assistance. Our engines are dead. We have wounded crew members." "Understood. We will send medical and engineering teams. Please do not be alarmed. We are here to help." The channel closed, turned to the crew. Their eyes were still wide with fear, but now there was something else in them too. Confusion, hope, questions that had no easy answers. "What just happened?" one of the scientists whispered. Did not know. They had spent centuries believing that humans were monsters, destroyers, beings of pure violence who would kill anything they touched. But monsters did not answer distress calls. Monsters did not ask if you needed help. Monsters did not say please. For the first time in history, someone was going to find out what humans really were. The airlock of the Gentle Dawn opened with a soft hiss. Commander stood at the front of the welcoming party, though welcoming was perhaps the wrong word. The crew huddled behind their commander like frightened children. Their forearms were wrapped around themselves. Their large eyes were fixed on the opening door. The human stepped through. Had seen pictures of humans before. Everyone in the galaxy had. But pictures did not prepare anyone for the reality. The humans were tall, much taller than, Their bodies were thick with muscle and bone. They moved with a smooth, controlled power that made every step look dangerous. Their eyes scanned the room constantly, watching everything, missing nothing. They were predators. Every instinct screamed this truth. These beings had evolved to hunt and kill. Their bodies were weapons. Their minds were designed to find weakness and exploit it. The first human through the door was a woman. She had kind eyes and gentle hands, but she still moved like something that could kill without effort. She wore a white uniform with medical symbols on it. "I am medical officer," she said. Her voice was soft, careful, like someone trying not to scare a wild animal. "We are here to help your wounded. May I approach?" Nodded slowly. The commander did not trust the voice to work properly. Moved forward. Behind her came more humans carrying medical equipment. They spread out across the ship, following the crew members who pointed them toward the injured. Watched work. A young scientist had been hurt during the engine failure. His arm was broken, bent at a terrible angle. He was crying with pain and fear as the human doctor knelt beside him. "It's okay," said softly. "I know you're scared, but I'm going to help you. This will hurt for just a moment and then it will feel much better. Can you trust me?" The young looked at her with huge, wet eyes. He nodded. His hands moved with practiced skill. She gave him something for the pain. She set the bone. She wrapped the arm in a special bandage that would help it heal. The whole time she talked to him in a calm, gentle voice. She told him he was brave. She told him he was going to be fine. She treated him like he mattered. Watched this and felt something strange. Confusion. The story said humans were violent monsters, but this woman was being kind. Genuinely kind. There was no trick, no hidden cruelty. She simply wanted to help. More humans arrived. Engineering teams this time. Their leader was a large man named. He had rough hands and tired eyes and a way of looking at machines like they were old friends. "Your engines," he said "can you show me?" Led him to the engine room. The engineers were there, looking at the dead machinery with despair. They had tried everything. Nothing worked. The ship was broken beyond their ability to repair. Looked at the engines for a long time. He walked around them. He touched different parts. He made small sounds that might have been words in his own language. His assistant, a young woman named I.M., took notes on a small device. "Beautiful design," finally said. "Really beautiful, but fragile. One power surge and the whole system collapses." "Can you fix it?" asked. Smiled. It was a tired smile, but a real one. "We can do better than fix it. We can make it stronger." The human engineers got to work. They did not sleep. They did not rest. For 6 hours they crawled through the engine systems, replacing parts, adding new components, rebuilding everything from the inside out. The engineers watched in amazement. Human engineering was different from theirs. Where built for efficiency and beauty, humans built for survival. Every part had a backup. Every system had a. Nothing was left to chance. Nothing was trusted to work perfectly. "Why do you build like this?" one of the engineers asked. The young human woman paused her work. She thought about the question for a moment. "Our world tried to kill us every day," she said. "Earthquakes, storms, floods, disease, predators. Everything wanted us dead. So we learned to build things that could survive disasters. We learned to plan for the worst because the worst always came." She returned to her work. "You never needed to think like that. Your worlds are gentle, safe. You build beautiful things because you can afford to. We build strong things because we cannot afford not to." Meanwhile, Captain Lee had come aboard the Gentle Dawn. He wanted to see the situation for himself. He walked through the ship slowly, watching his crew work, watching the watch his crew. Approached him. The commander's fear was still there, but curiosity was stronger now. "Why?" asked. "Why did you come? Why are you helping us?" Lee considered the question. He was not a man who spoke much, but this question deserved an answer. "Someone was in trouble," he said. "We were close enough to help. That's reason enough. But we are strangers. We have avoided your kind for centuries. We have called you monsters and worse. Lee nodded. I know, and maybe some of those stories are true. Humans have done terrible things. We have wars in our history that killed millions of our own people. We are capable of great cruelty. He paused. His eyes were distant for a moment, seeing old memories. But we are also capable of great kindness. We protect the people who cannot protect themselves. We help the people who need help. This is also what we are. He looked at directly. You sent a distress call. You were dying. It doesn't matter that you're strangers. It doesn't matter that you fear us. What matters is that you needed help and we could give it. Was silent for a long moment. Then the commander spoke words that no had ever spoken to a human before. Thank you. Lee nodded, just a small movement, but it meant everything. 6 hours later, the Gentle Dawn's engines came back online. They were stronger than before, faster, more reliable. The ship could fly again. Its medical team had treated every wounded crew member. The serious injuries were stable. The minor ones were already healing. No one had died. As the human teams prepared to leave, gathered the crew on the bridge. They watched the Black Mountain through the main, the massive warship that had saved them, the weapon that had become their guardian. Everything we believed was wrong, said quietly. They are not monsters. They are something else entirely. What are they? Someone asked. Thought about the gentle hands of the doctor, the tireless work of the engineers, the simple honesty of the captain. I don't know, the commander admitted, but I intend to find out. News traveled fast in the galaxy. Within days, everyone knew what had happened in the Andromeda Passage. A human warship had answered a distress call. It had destroyed a pirate fleet in 4 minutes. It had rescued the stranded crew without asking for anything in return. The reaction was different everywhere. In space, there was silence. The syndicate leaders gathered in their hidden bases and watched the recordings that had sent before his capture. They saw the Black Mountain tear through their ships like paper. They saw weapons they could not understand do damage they could not survive. They saw what happened to people who attracted human attention. For the first time in 200 years, the syndicate stopped raiding the Andromeda Passage. Their ships stayed in port. Their crews stayed quiet. No one wanted to be the next target. Himself was found drifting in an escape pod 3 days later. He never spoke about what happened. He never took another ship. He spent the rest of his life in a small room, drinking himself to sleep and waking up screaming from nightmares about black metal and calm voices. In space, the reaction was more complicated. The High Council met in emergency session. These were the oldest and beings who had guided their species for centuries. They sat in a great circular chamber and debated what had happened, what it meant, what they should do. Senior Counselor was the first to speak, was old even by standards. 400 years of life had given the Counselor wisdom and patience. Both were needed now. We have footage of the incident, said. I suggest we watch it together. The recording played on the great screen. The Council saw the Black Mountain arrive. They saw the battle. They saw the aftermath. And then they saw something that made several counselors gasp with surprise. The human medical officer, treating wounded with gentle hands. The human engineers, working through the night to repair a foreign ship. The human captain, standing calmly in the halls of the Gentle Dawn, explaining that helping strangers was reason enough. This is not what we expected, one counselor said. No, agreed. It is not. For centuries, we have believed humans to be dangerous animals, violent creatures who destroy everything they touch. We built our entire policy around avoiding them. Paused, looking at the frozen image of Captain Lee on the screen. But dangerous animals do not answer distress calls. They do not heal the wounded of other species. They do not repair foreign ships and ask for nothing in return. Another counselor spoke up, an old enemy of human contact. Perhaps this is a trick, a show of strength disguised as mercy. They want us to lower our guard. To what end? Asked. They could have destroyed the fleet completely. Instead, they disabled it. They could have demanded payment for the rescue. Instead, they refused all offers. They could have taken the Gentle Dawn by force. Instead, they fixed it and left. The counselor had no answer. Continued, I propose that we do something our species has never done before. I propose that we talk to them, learn about them, understand what they truly are. The vote was close. Many counselors were still afraid, but in the end, curiosity won over fear. The High Council voted to request formal diplomatic contact with Earth. The message was sent. The humans accepted. On the Black Mountain, life returned to normal. The ship made its way back to Earth at a leisurely pace. Captain Lee reviewed reports in his ready room. The crew went about their duties. No one treated the rescue as anything special. They had done their job. That was all. But Commander Han noticed something different about her captain. He spent more time looking out the windows at the stars. He seemed to be thinking about something far away. She found him in the observation deck one evening. He was alone, watching the lights of distant galaxies. They have requested a diplomatic summit, she said. They want to establish formal relations with Earth. Lee nodded slowly. That's good. You don't seem surprised. I'm not. He turned to face her. Fear comes from not knowing. They were afraid of us because they had never met us. They only knew the stories, the warnings, the rumors. And now they've seen who we really are. Not just our weapons, not just our strength. They've seen our doctors treating their wounded, our engineers fixing their ship. They've seen us help people who were strangers and enemies. Han moved to stand beside him. Do you think it will change anything? I think it already has. Lee looked back at the stars. One distress call, one rescue, and now a species that avoided us for centuries wants to talk. That's how change starts. Not with grand gestures, with small acts of kindness that people remember. Back on the Commander was preparing for a new assignment. The High Council had made an unusual request. They wanted to serve as the first ambassador to Earth. You have met them, Counselor explained. You have seen them in crisis and in calm. You understand them better than any other alive. Was not sure that was true. The Commander understood nothing about humans. Every moment on the Gentle Dawn had raised more questions than answers. But perhaps that was exactly why needed to go. To find those answers. To understand these strange beings who built weapons of terrible power and then used them to protect strangers. I will go, told the council. I will learn everything I can. Be careful, warned. They are still dangerous, perhaps the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Thought about the captain who had crossed the void to save people he had never met. The doctor who had held a wounded's hand and promised everything would be okay. The engineers who had worked without rest to help a ship that was not their own. Yes, said quietly, they are dangerous, but I am beginning to think we misunderstood what makes them so. The preparations began. In 3 months would travel to Earth, the first to set foot on the human, the first to walk among thee and live to tell about it. No one knew what would happen. No one could predict how this first contact would change both species, but something had shifted in the galaxy. A door had opened that could never be closed again. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the Black Mountain continued its patrol, ready to answer the next call, ready to help the next stranger, carrying within its black metal hull the simple truth that humans had learned long ago. The universe was cold and dangerous and full of things that wanted to kill you, but you did not have to face it alone. And sometimes, the most terrifying thing in the darkness was also the one that would save your life. The human space station called Horizon Prime was larger than any structure had ever seen. It hung in orbit above Earth like a silver city in the sky. Ships came and went constantly. Lights blinked across its surface like stars. And behind it, filling half the viewport, was the planet that had created the most feared species in the galaxy. Earth stared at it through the shuttle window. It was beautiful, blue oceans, green lands, white clouds. It looked peaceful, gentle, nothing like the death world the stories described. But knew better now. That beautiful planet had earthquakes that swallowed cities, storms that destroyed everything in their path, volcanoes that burned the sky, diseases that killed millions, predators with teeth and claws and poison. It was a world at war with itself, and humans were the survivors. Lieutenant Park met at the shuttle dock. She was the officer who had first detected the Gentle Dawn's distress call 3 months ago. She had been promoted since then. New rank symbols decorated her uniform. "Ambassador," she said with a small bow, "welcome to Horizon Prime. I will be your guide during your visit." Returned the bow. It was a human gesture of respect that the ambassador had practiced many times. "Thank you, Lieutenant. It is strange to think that you are the reason I am here today." Smiled. "I just answered a signal." Captain Lee made the decision to respond. And that decision changed everything. They walked through the station together, tried to observe everything. The humans moving through the corridors, the shops and restaurants, the recreation areas. The ambassador had expected military efficiency and cold discipline. Instead, there was warmth, laughter, life. A group of human children ran past, chasing each other in some kind of game. They were on a school trip, explained, learning about space travel and other species. One small girl stopped to stare at with huge, curious eyes. "Hello," the girl said. "Are you an alien?" Knelt down to the child's level. "Yes, I am called. My name is." "I'm," the girl said. "You have 4 arms. That's so cool." Before could respond, a teacher hurried over and apologized. She led the children away, but the little girl waved goodbye, waved back with 2 of 4 arms. "Your children are not afraid of aliens," observed. "Why would they be?" asked. "To them, you're just a person from somewhere else. Children don't learn fear until adults teach it to them." Thought about that for a long time. The diplomatic summit began the next day. Captain Lee was there, representing Earth's military. Ambassador No handled the diplomatic details. She was a small woman with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. The discussions went on for several days. Trade agreements, communication protocols, cultural exchanges, scientific cooperation. Each topic required careful negotiation. Each agreement required trust that both species were still building. But progress was made, real progress. By the end of the first week, the foundations of a lasting relationship had been established. On the final day, asked to address the assembled delegates, Ambassador No agreed. Stood before the gathering, humans on one side, advisors on the other, 2 species that had been strangers for centuries, now sitting in the same room, working toward the same goals. "When I was young," began, "my parents told me stories about humans. They said you were monsters, destroyers, beings shaped by violence into instruments of violence. They said your world was a death world and death was all you knew." The ambassador paused, looking at the human faces. None of them seemed offended. They simply listened. "I believed those stories. Every did. For centuries we avoided you. We feared you. We built our entire relationship with your species around that fear." Took a deep breath. "Then my ship broke down in deep space. Pirates came. We had no weapons, no engines, no hope, and in our desperation we sent a signal that reached your world. The story said you would ignore us, or worse, but instead you sent a ship, not to conquer, not to destroy, to help." Turned to Captain Lee. "You crossed the void to save strangers you had never met. Your doctor healed our wounded with gentle hands. Your engineers worked through the night to repair our ship, and when it was over, you asked for nothing in return." The captain nodded slightly, but said nothing. We called your world a death world, continued. We believed that surviving such a place must have stripped away everything soft in you: compassion, mercy, kindness. We thought these things could not exist in beings forged by constant struggle. We were wrong. The words hung in the air. Everyone was listening now. You did not survive your world by becoming cruel. You survived by becoming strong enough to protect the weak. You did not evolve despite your world's dangers. You evolved because of them. You learned that survival alone is meaningless without others to share it with. You learned to fight, yes, but you also learned to protect those who cannot fight for themselves. Spread all four arms wide, a gesture of complete openness. This is what makes humanity dangerous. Not your weapons, not your warships, not your terrible strength. It is your conviction that every life has value, your willingness to risk your own life to protect strangers, your refusal to let people suffer when you have the power to help. The galaxy fears you because it does not understand you, but I have walked among you. I have seen your children laugh and play. I have seen your doctors heal and your engineers build. I have seen your captain cross the stars because someone needed help. Looked at the assembly one final time. You come from a world that tried to kill you every day of your existence, and you responded not with hatred but with hope, not with cruelty but with kindness. You became the protectors of a galaxy that feared you. My people spent centuries running from you. Today, I ask that we walk beside you instead. The chamber was silent for a moment. Then Captain Lee stood. He crossed the room to where stood and extended his hand, a human gesture of friendship and agreement. Took it with one hand, then another, then a third, all four hands clasped around the captain's one, holding tight. "Welcome to the family," Lee said quietly. The treaty was signed that day. It was the first of many. Other species watched what happened. They saw the who had once feared humans now standing beside them as allies. They saw the syndicate collapse as pirates fled from human patrols. They saw a galaxy slowly changing. One by one, other species reached out. Some were curious, some were desperate, some had nowhere else to turn, and each time the humans answered. They sent ships and doctors and engineers. They protected the weak and helped the struggling. They did not ask for worship or payment. They simply did what needed to be done. The Black Mountain flew for another 30 years. Captain Lee eventually retired. Commander Han took his place, and then others after her. The ship changed. The crew changed. But the mission never did. Answer the call, protect the innocent, help those who need it. This was what it meant to be human. This was what it meant to come from a death world and turn that death into life. This was the truth that the galaxy finally understood. The most dangerous species in the universe was also the one most likely to save you. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, a signal would flash, a cry for help, a desperate plea. And the would answer. They always did.